My name is Nydia. I'm 26 years old. They said I would amount to nothing. They laughed at my dreams. They drew a finish line for me before I'd even started the race. So I disappeared. I didn't argue, I didn't protest, and I didn't post a single thing about what I was going to do. This is the story of the only response they ever got. There's a unique kind of quiet that falls over a room when your name becomes a punchline. It's this heavy, suffocating silence after a joke that everyone gets, but nobody wants to admit they heard. I got real fluent in that silence. It was the language I lived in, the soundtrack to my ambition. They looked at me and saw a dead end, a cautionary tale. And the worst part? For a long time, when I looked in the mirror, I saw the exact same thing. When I was younger, it felt like no one believed in me. No one expected much, and that included me. It wasn't one big moment of rejection. It was more like a slow drip, a steady chipping away at my confidence, like 1,000 tiny paper cuts to the soul. It was the guidance counselor who glanced at my grades and gently suggested a more realistic career, with her pen hovering over options that looked like life sentences. It was the well-meaning relatives at holidays asking what I was really going to do with my life. Their questions soaked in a pity I could almost taste. Their words built the prison in my mind, but I was the one who locked the door from the inside. Their disbelief was a constant static buzzing in the back of my head, so loud it drowned out the tiny whisper of my own potential. I started to speak their language. I started to buy into their story. My dreams, once huge and colorful, started to shrink. They became small, manageable, and most importantly, invisible. I learned to stop talking about them because the quiet that followed was way less painful than their polite, dismissive smiles. Every little setback felt like proof they were right. A failed test wasn't just a bad grade, it was evidence I wasn't smart enough. A rejection letter wasn't just a no, it was the universe agreeing with them. I was actively collecting evidence against myself, building a case for my own mediocrity. The small world they saw for me was the world I was starting to create. I remember this one night clearly. I was at some social thing, surrounded by people who were all moving up. They were talking about promotions, new businesses, getting into grad school, and I was just there. A satellite with a broken transmitter, just floating around a world I wasn't really part of. Someone I knew from my past, someone whose opinion used to matter, turned to me with this look, part curiosity, part condescension. "So," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "what have you been up to? Still chasing that crazy dream?" And in that moment, the laughter wasn't just in my head. It was real. It was light and casual, and it cut right through me. Nobody was being a monster. That's the tricky thing about this kind of doubt. It's disguised as concern, wrapped up in realism. It's the gentle hand on your shoulder, guiding you toward a smaller life, for your own good. I went home that night, and the static was deafening. The echoes of their doubts, their laughter, my own voice chiming in. It was a storm inside my own head. I looked at my reflection and didn't even recognize myself. The tired eyes, the slumped shoulders. This was the person they all saw. This was the person I'd become. It was rock bottom. The bottom of a well I had helped dig. I felt completely isolated, not because I was alone, but because I was surrounded by people who saw a lesser version of me that I was starting to accept. The pain of it was this dull, constant ache. But in the deepest, quietest part of that despair, something else flickered. Not hope, not yet. Just anger. A cold, quiet anger. I was angry at them for writing me off, but I was even angrier at myself for letting them. That night, something just snapped. The storm in my head collapsed into a single, sharp point of clarity. I saw how pointless it all was. The arguments I was having in my own head, the desperate need to make them see, the craving for their approval, it was a total waste of energy. It was like trying to argue with an echo. You just get a warped version of your own voice back. I realized that begging for their validation was the very thing keeping me trapped. Every time I tried to explain my vision, I was handing them veto power. Every time I searched their eyes for a flicker of belief, I was admitting that my own wasn't enough. I was asking for permission to be great from people who were committed to seeing me as small, and they were never going to give it. Why would they? My success would just prove their judgment wrong. So I made a decision. It wasn't loud, there was no big announcement. It was a quiet vow I made to myself. I was going to disappear. I didn't move or change my name. This was a social and mental disappearing act. I would just stop talking, stop explaining, stop justifying myself. I was done showing up to the court of their opinion because I was dropping the case. Their verdict didn't matter anymore. I muted the noise. I stopped scrolling through social media, comparing my chapter 1 to their chapter 20. I politely declined invitations to gatherings where I knew I'd be measured and found wanting. My silence wasn't angry or a punishment. It was a boundary, a sanctuary. It was me finally choosing my own peace over their noise. At first, that quiet was terrifying. My life had been so shaped by the push and pull of what other people thought that, without it, I felt lost. The static was gone, but the silence that took its place was deep. It forced me to finally listen to the one voice I'd been ignoring for years, my own. And in that silence, something started to grow. It was fragile at first, a little seed of an idea that I didn't have to prove them wrong. I just had to prove myself right. The goal changed. It wasn't about some big "I told you so" moment. It wasn't about dreaming up the perfect comeback. The goal became the work itself, the process. Achieving my goals became the only response they'd ever need, because it was a response I would never have to say out loud. The results would speak for themselves. That was the turning point, the decision to stop talking and start doing, to stop reminding them I existed and start building a life so full and vibrant it wouldn't need an introduction. I traded the cheap thrill of winning an argument for the permanent power of becoming the argument itself. I took all the energy I'd been wasting trying to convince them and decided to invest it in myself. The journey didn't start with a leap. It started with a single step in the quiet of my own room. Outside, the world kept spinning and the doubters kept doubting, but in my self-imposed exile, I was building a new reality. First, I had to rewire my own brain. For years, my inner voice was just a recording of my worst critics. I had to become my own defender. I started a simple journaling practice, not about my hurt feelings, but about my efforts. Every single day, I wrote down one thing I did that moved me forward, no matter how small. Read 10 pages about my craft. Went for a 20-minute walk. Made one scary phone call. This wasn't about finding proof for them, it was about collecting wins for myself. These little entries became my evidence, indisputable data in the case for my own potential. I started to practice reframing my thoughts. When a setback happened, the old voice would scream, "See? They were right." But I learned to catch it. I learned to talk back. What did I learn from this? What's the lesson? How can this failure be fuel? I started to see every scar, not as damage, but as armor. Every setback was no longer a wall, but a stepping stone. I completely rejected complaining, realizing it was just a trap that kept me focused on the problem instead of the solution. My focus shifted to what I could control, my effort, my attitude, and my next move. Then came the physical part. I realized my mind and body aren't separate. They're one system. My lack of physical discipline was a mirror of my lack of mental discipline. So I started moving. It started with a walk, then a jog. Then I found myself in a gym, feeling clumsy and awkward, but I kept showing up. I wasn't there to get a body that would impress anyone. I was there to forge discipline. The 5 a.m. alarm wasn't a punishment. It was a promise I was keeping to myself. The burn in my muscles wasn't pain. It was weakness leaving my body. With every workout, I was teaching myself that I could handle discomfort. I could push past what I thought my limits were. I could show up even when I really didn't want to. And as I worked on my mentality, my strength, and my health, something incredible happened. My posture changed. I started to take up space differently. The energy I gave off was no longer apologetic. It was solid, grounded, forged in quiet, consistent effort. At the same time, I went all in on my craft. While they were at parties, I was at my desk. While they were sleeping in, I was studying. While they were talking about what they were going to do, I was doing it. I devoured books, courses, and articles like I was starving. I practiced, I failed, I practiced again. I sought out mentors, not by asking them for anything, but by studying their work and applying their principles. I started small, taking on tiny projects to test myself and build momentum. I'd finish one, take that small win, that tiny deposit of confidence, and use it to fuel the next slightly bigger project. It was a slow process of stacking bricks, one by one, day after day. No one saw the wall going up. There were no progress pics, no look at me updates, just the quiet, satisfying sound of another brick being laid in its place. There were days when the silence was heavy, days the old doubts crept back, Days I felt the crushing weight of the path I'd chosen. But then I'd look at my journal, a logbook of my own resilience. I'd feel the new strength in my body, a testament to my discipline. I'd look at the growing body of work, the tangible proof of all those quiet hours, and slowly, the magic started to happen. With results came belief. It wasn't a sudden flash of light. It was a belief forged in the fire of my own effort. It was real, it was earned, and it was mine. No one could give it to me, and no one could ever take it away. I'd stopped looking for a hero because I was busy becoming one. I didn't need their applause because I was finally hearing my own. There was no finish line, no single moment where I threw my hands up and declared victory. The reveal wasn't an announcement, it was a discovery. People didn't hear about my success from me, they just started bumping into it. It happened in small ways at first. A former colleague stumbling upon a project I led. My name in the credits of something important. An article mentioning a company I'd built. My work started entering rooms before I did. The whispers started to change. The old punchline was replaced with a question mark. Is that the same guy? What happened to him? Where did that come from? I remember running into that same man who had laughed at my crazy dream all those years ago. The setting was different this time. It was an industry conference, and I wasn't just there. I was a speaker. I had just walked off stage, buzzing from the crowd's energy. He came up to me, and the condescending look was gone. It was replaced with total bewilderment. He said my name, and it sounded different now. It had weight. I can't believe it, he stammered. When I saw your name on the program, wow, you actually did it. The old me would have eaten that moment up. The old me would have wanted to say, yeah, I did. No thanks to you. The old me would have needed that admission, but standing there, I didn't feel any of that. No anger, no bitterness, not even triumph. Just peace. His surprise was a reflection of his own limits, not my potential. I just smiled and said, it's good to see you, and walked away. Because what else was there to say? The work had said it all. My success was never for him, it was for me. This journey taught me that external validation is a sugar rush. It's sweet, it's fleeting, and it leaves you empty. Real sustenance comes from internal validation, from the deep, quiet knowledge that you set a goal and you met it, that you made a promise to yourself and you kept it. I'd found a new source of strength, a confidence that wasn't built on the shifting sand of other people's opinions, but on the bedrock of my own accomplishments. I looked in the mirror now and saw someone I respected, someone I believed in. That was the real prize. The voices of doubt haven't vanished completely, they never really do. But now they're just whispers in a hurricane of self-belief. They have no power. They're just echoes from a past I don't live in anymore. I had finally understood the deepest truth of all. No one believed in me, so I did. I had to become my own first believer, and I realized that if I could pull myself from those depths and build a new reality from scratch, then I can do anything. In the end, this story isn't about them. It was never about them. It's not about proving haters wrong. It's about proving yourself right. It's about the life-altering power of tuning out the noise and getting to work. It's about knowing that the most important conversation you'll ever have is the one with yourself when no one else is listening. Your dreams don't need an audience to be valid. Your worth isn't decided by a committee. Your potential is not up for a popular vote. You have to be the one who sees it, protects it, and works for it, especially when you're surrounded by a chorus of doubt. So let them talk. Let them laugh. Let them underestimate you. Don't waste your breath. Save your energy. Go dark. Disappear into the work. Pour every ounce of your focus and fire into building and becoming. Let your focus be so total that their voices just fade away. Because one day you will emerge. Not with a shout, but with results. Your success will be the only statement you ever need to make. It will be undeniable, irrefutable, and completely yours. Remember this. You don't need anyone else to believe in you. You're the only one that needs to believe, and you are the only one who can make it happen. If this story hit home, if you've ever felt that weight of doubt, like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Subscribe for more stories about turning struggle into strength. And let me know in the comments, what is the one thing you're working on in silence right now?